Okay, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Thomas Meredith, and I will be moderating today. On behalf of the Resource Management Institute, I would like to welcome you to today's Power Up session, How to Self-Assess Your Resource Management Readiness. We are scheduled for just 30 minutes today, and that does include time for questions and a discussion at the end. We do want these Power Up sessions to be a little more interactive than maybe your typical webinar presentation. So please, throughout the presentation, as questions come up, enter them in your questions section of the GoToWebinar panel, and we will have a discussion at the end. Also, a copy of the presentation is available in the handout section of your GoToWebinar panel, so feel free to download a PDF copy of that if you wish. And with that, let's get started. Let me get out of the way. Leading today's discussion is the Managing Director of the RMI, Randy Mysliviec. Randy, it's all yours.
Wonderful. Thanks, Thomas. Quick sound check. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, good morning and good afternoon, good evening to some of you looking at the panel. We got people from all around the globe participating today, so it's exciting to have everyone join us for our Power Up session for the fourth quarter. How to self-assess your resource management readiness. If you're an enterprise or internal IT shop, a professional services organization, a consulting services organization, as an example, you are heavily reliant on human capital to run and manage your businesses. And the whole area of resource management, as I'll show you some data, is really, really important to effective project performance. So anyway, one of the best ways to get about understanding where RM fits in our priorities for process and automation needs within our businesses is a self-assessment to quickly help yourself get to a good understanding of whether this is an area you need to focus on or not. Obviously, every company is in a different state of maturity, and you may already know it's an issue, or you may know that you've already solved it. Let me start with a quick introduction to the Resource Management Institute. For those of you who are not familiar with us, is the RMI is dedicated to the advancement of resource and workforce management thought leadership, best practices, and standards that are globally recognized. And we certify resource and workforce management expertise and the tools and resources necessary for effective and efficient management of human capital, particularly for project-oriented businesses. And again, internal enterprise IT, consulting, professional services tend to be folks that are using the Resource Management Institute and the various offerings that we have to help you with problems in the resource management area. So we're building this community, and I'll talk more about that, but if you've been to our website, resourcemanagementinstitute.com, you'll find that we provide you opportunities to communicate and collaborate with your peers in the industry. There's a nice personal network capability you can build. There's a forum capability. There's access to white papers, lots of things you can do within the site itself. Opportunities to innovate. If you've been through the program, you get special access to a portal into special tool sets and things to help you with resource management. That's a nice benefit for those folks who choose to go through the certification program. And then the certification program itself is, of course, a way to get training and education. We offer the world's only certification program for resource managers, known as the Resource Management Certified Professional, or RMCP for short. Best news of all is you can join the RMI for free. We're seeing explosive growth of the RMI as people are really latching on to wanting to help develop their peer groups in resource management, which has been I'll just say lacking in the industry for a long time. So I'll come back to the RMI in a few minutes, but let's get on to the topic of the webcast today. And why this is so important is, today, again, if you're in an enterprise internal IT, according to the Gartner Group, you're seeing 35% plus failures on average in your projects. The Technology Services Industry Association for Professional Consulting Services Organizations has data, again, very similar, that project performance rates are in the 35+% range. Utilization in both organizations are not where they need to be. They are, generally speaking, most people have, organizations have unpredictable utilization, too many peaks and valleys. And then, of course, when we don't do well at these things, our customers are at the tail end of our lack of hitting the mark every time, whether they are internal customers for the enterprise IT folks or our external customers for a professional consulting services organization. The impact is the same. And why is this? Well, the data is very compelling as the industry has invested heavily in project management and quality processes, but the lack of resource management process discipline is the number one reason why organizations tend to suffer in project performance. We've seen the data. I was at an industry conference back in the summertime, and they talked about for the last 20 years, project performance for enterprise IT organizations has not wavered one bit, yet the industry has invested a tremendous amount of project and quality management tools, and I would submit to you it's because we haven't gotten it right on resource management. Continuity of RM capable resources, finding good resource managers is not easy today because they're not as prevalent as project managers, because the training certification programs and things haven't existed until now. And the RMI is trying to change that equation for the industry by helping to push out better education and more focus on this really important discipline. Insufficient automation. There's a ton of really good PPM/PSA tools that have brought new capabilities to the market that you can marry with your process disciplines, produce a better result, and of course education, which the RMI is now bringing to the organization. If at a simplest level for certification, for self-assessment, these are some examples of some things that can help you understand whether or not I really should poke and prod a bit at my resource management areas. And so I mentioned the investments we've made, appropriately so, by the way, in project and quality management. Those are things that are really important, and I don't want anybody to take away from this webcast that we don't think those are important. They are very, very important. We would tell you, though, that putting a resource management discipline in front of both of those will produce a much, much better result for you. So if you're having late-stage design problems or large amounts of break-fix incidents, when you do a decomposition of what caused those projects to have quality issues, a lot of the times you'll find that we didn't have the right expert in the design phase. We got a late start because we had staffing shortages, or we had the wrong mix of skills at the beginning. On a PM side, again, 35% of the industry's projects are doomed to failure before they start and end up with budget overruns, project delays, simply because we couldn't get the right person with the right skills in the right place at the right moment in time. Now, this webcast is driven off of 2 white papers that were published by the Resource Management Institute. You can get at them through the link that is provided there on the page. And there are 2 versions of it. One is specific to the enterprise IT environment. One is very specific to professional consulting services. So you can get at those. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you some highlights from those white papers and talk a little bit about what a self-assessment looks like. And the beauty of this is it can be done pretty quickly, pretty inexpensively. You can do it on your own and help your organization start to develop some visibility to where maybe you have needs for more help. So let me just start with project performance. As I mentioned, 35% of projects are doomed to failure before they start, and that doesn't matter what your domain is, whether it's enterprise IT or you're in the consulting world. But the failure rate's really, really high, and industry data, again, points to resource management. This ability to get the right person in the right place at the right moment in time with the right skills tends to be the biggest issue. So, first performance check is how are you doing on time and on budget performance for your projects? And if you're running something greater than 3 or 4 or 5%, then there's probably a reason as to why that's happening, and is it related to resource management? We'll let you determine that. The percent of utilization, the bottom line is in project-based businesses, human capital is where most of our investment is tied up in. And managing, if you have an organization that's got 25, 50, 100, 1,000 people, just take 1% or 2% or 3% of what the value is of that investment, and just say if I did 1, 2, 3, 4% better than where I was, whether or not I am an internal IT shop and it's just sunk cost in my IT organization, or I am billable to a customer in a consultant service organization, if I'm not generating utilization that's benchmark or better and consistently, not month to month, 1 month I'm at 60%, 1 month I hit 84%, the next month I hit 72%, which we see a lot in organizations that are struggling with how to solve this problem, is if you're not hitting benchmark levels or better, or consistency levels you have peaks and valleys, then you probably have issues. The other one I'll mention to you is distribution of utilization. We frequently find organizations, when you look at what they're doing and what the utilization is within their organizations, is we find 100% of the time organizations have inconsistency in the utilization within a role type. You find people that are in a particular jobs role that are 40% utilized, some that are 99% utilized and working lots of overtime, or stuff in between. Now, generally there are reasons for certain individuals why somebody's new, they're going through training, those sorts of things, and we understand that. But on a bigger population, you should be able to look across both your role types and well as within role types, and there ought to be consistency of the distribution of how your human capital is being used. And if it's not, we would submit to you have a breakdown in the process of how you assign people to projects, and maybe you get underneath that and find I have a skills imbalance. Well, I should have recognized that skills imbalance 3 months ago and done something about it before it became an issue. And so that's a good example of why we think process discipline is really, really important here to solving this resource management issue. Quality, defect levels, and rework. So when we're doing project-based work, most organizations measure these two things at some level. Everybody has their tolerances to what they think defect levels can be, and what rework levels are. We certainly have access to benchmark data through our own research and other organizations where we've acquired data as well. But we know what good looks like, and you probably have in your mind what you think good looks like as well. But if your defect levels and rework are not where they need to be, again, look at resource management as a potential reason as to why the organization is not performing where you want it to be. Attrition and retention. Is it equal to or better than industry averages? And so a lot of people say, well, Randy, why does this matter, resource management relative to retention and attrition? And why it matters is simply most people that are technology workers, as an example, doing work in today's environment, really don't like a chaotic work schedule. And I don't want to confuse that with working hard. What I mean by that is that my work schedule changes constantly. I get moved from one project to another. I get a call on Friday afternoon that says I need to be in a different city on Monday morning because we understaffed a project or we're having some kind of an issue or problem. People generally don't like chaotic work environments, and we see a very direct correlation between organizations that get it right on good resource management discipline and those that continue to manage in very chaotic work environments where people's work schedules are not well planned, not well thought out. And again, I can bring that right back to a resource management deficiency that the organization should be addressing at some level. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is one it's really close to my heart, because this used to be me at one point in time managing a very large population of technology workers, and I, by the way, have worked and I spent 18 years at IBM, so enterprise IT very familiar to me, and I've spent pretty much the balance of my other 22 years in the industry working in a combination of either enterprise IT or professional consulting services organizations, and so I've kind of seen it all, so to speak. And the one thing that's always kind of drove me crazy, I walk into somebody's office who's responsible for managing a portfolio of projects, and I see this private whiteboard, and I see names on the whiteboard with circles and arrows going lots of different ways to pointing to different projects, and they're trying to sort through how to staff a complex array of projects where a particular, I'll say, subset of experts are needed to pull these projects off. I would submit to you that if you have that private whiteboard somewhere in your organization, and that's how things are getting done from a standpoint of assigning staff to projects, that you're in dire need of a different approach to resource management. So I know there are some people that are sitting back in their chair having a little bit of a laugh over this one, but it really, really is true. And in organizations that really get this right can toss the private whiteboard out the window, because there's just a lot better ways that we can address and deal with these things. So those are in the white paper. Between the two various environments, enterprise IT and PS and consulting, we've got these performance checks that run across a range of these 6 things. And in that white paper, you have an opportunity to score yourself, and then you'll aggregate your scores in those white papers. And at the end, you kind of give you an idea where is this an area where I need to spend more time? It's an area where it's like a modest or medium problem, or an area that I can probably ignore because it's not really where our issues might happen to be. We've used this very, very effectively for quite some time, and would really encourage you to give it a whirl and see how it does for you. So the second half of both white papers then refer to what we call performance drivers. Now, if you went through the certification program, the RMCP program, you would learn a global resource management process that speaks to 6 building blocks or essential areas that are important to making a good resource management environment work. And so I want to talk to each of those just briefly here with you. We wrap all these things into something we call just-in-time resourcing, because any good solution to a business problem in the world that we all work in project-based work, is a combination of I need good process to manage through the various things to get my projects from beginning to the end successfully. But there are lots of places where good process automation really, really adds a lot of value to being able to do this and to do it well. And so we are, as an organization, very big believers that companies really do need to embrace good PSA and PPM tools in order to bring their process to life and make it work better. So let me just kind of walk around the wheel here for a moment and talk briefly about this. Is on the skills side, is a fundamental building block is getting an accurate skills database put in place. And again, hopefully that's in some kind of an automation tool like a PSA or PPM tool, but having a database that says who do I have, where are they located, what competencies they have, what's their availability, really, really important, because that's the database upon which we draw when we start to look at our future forecasts and start to assign a match a demand to our supply of human capital. If that database is up to date, we're really in great shape, or a much better position to do that. If we're not, we're going to have a problem. So ask yourself, do I have that? And a lot of companies go through the effort of building this database, but fall down in the area of maintaining it. And as we all know, as people move through the organization, people leave, they quit, they retire, they won't take a new job, they learn some new skills. Those things need to be reflected in your database. On the staffing side, we need a process to match need with staff. How do I match supply with demand? And in most organizations, and I know all of you probably can appreciate this, is that if we run into these things where sometimes I just didn't plan well. I got 3 experts that I need on 6 projects, and how do I break the ties? Who gets the best people and who doesn't? Is it a manual or an automated process? And there's lots of other things that we all go through, and we're trying to match supply and demand. But organizations ought to get down to a much more discipline, where there's a lot less chaoticness to that matching process, and more process discipline. By the way, again, automation can help you do 85–90% of that job if you pick the right tool and you have the right process behind it. If I had a dime for every time somebody told me that you can't forecast this stuff, it's too hard in our business, I'd be much richer than I am today. And I would just tell you that we've never run into a situation where people can't substantially improve on their ability to look into the future on what I need for human capital. And that's not only the number of people, but it's where they are, what skills they have, and what competencies that they have. And you just can't do this well unless you have a reasonably accurate forecasts. I was listening to a webcast earlier this week, and not to mention who and what, but I heard somebody on the phone on the webcast say, well, you don't need to be that accurate, so just get yourself close. And I would just tell you that we see the biggest differences. That little bit of accuracy that does come in through the forecast makes a gigantic difference in all the downstream effects of supply and demand and in candidate sourcing and training ahead of the curve and those kinds of things. So getting a forecast in place, really, really important. With an accurate forecast, and you can add structure and discipline to sourcing and development, is I can look out in the future and get ahead of the curve on, I got a new product coming out, I have a new project starting in our IT shop. I know I've got an operational keep the lights on kind of thing. We're moving to a new database. It's going to affect 20 systems over the next 2 years. I got to do. Seeing these things in the future then gives me a chance to start to think about, do I have enough people, not enough people, too many people, what skills are they going to need, and I can begin to work on those problems now, because we all know human capital ramping up takes time. Even the smallest organizations can benefit from a modern PSA, PPM tool. There's a lot of them out there. What I would encourage organizations to do is don't pick your tool till you pick your process, and have that process understood as to what you're going to do, so that you can start to pick a tool that's going to help me in the best way possible bring my process to life. I'll tell you, we are quite, as an institute, quite familiar with lots of these tools. There's no perfect tool out there. Every one of them has some warts, but by the way, they all have some really, really cool, capable features, and so these tools have come a long, long way in the last 10 years. So if you're operating on an old generational tool, you ought to be thinking about looking and seeing what's out there. And last is, like any good process, inspect what you expect. Resource management is a cross-functional thing. Governance plans are really, really key to success if you're going to want to make it work. Again, in the white papers, we talk about how to score yourself in these various areas. We give you some dimensions around which to do that, and then you can then aggregate your scores on the performance checks with the performance drivers. You'll come up with a total in the end that'll tell you whether or not, hey, we're in great shape, we have some work to do, or we're really in trouble here, and we really need to get our arms around this resource management thing quickly. So I'm going to finish with a few conclusions, but I hope you'll stay with me. I got a couple things that I think are going to be interesting to you. First conclusion is simply in the last 20 years, the industry has made little progress improving project performance. Resource management remains the #1 issue that organizations need to address versus PM or quality. And again, project management and quality, really, really important. We just think you need to get this done ahead of those two things, or come in with triage now to help you address resource management deficiencies wherever they may be. And the last is process. RM process is key. Automation tools are important, but they're only a part of the solution. Now, how can I'd encourage you to go back, grab those white papers, and use that. Do a self-assessment and see how you do. A reminder on the RMI. First of all, joining's free, so you got nothing to lose joining up, participating in the forums, interacting with some of your peers, building your personal networks, looking at some of the white papers, and trying to extract some value from the resource management. And it helps us, by the way, build a community. Push this stuff out to your LinkedIn networks or other social networks. So we would appreciate your helping us to build this community as rapidly as we can. Opportunity to collaborate in events like this, opportunities to learn from our white paper library. And by the way, you can certainly get certified. By the way, if you'd like some data, we've got a survey going on right now. We are getting tons of responses, so we're really excited about people's interest. We're running a survey series. There's going to be 5 topics. The first is, I'll just say, overview topics for resource management. But if you participate in the survey, it's a blind survey, so you participate in it. We don't publish your names or anything, but you'll get the results back, and so you get some free research data back as a result of participating. There's the link to be able to do that. Before I jump to the Q&A, just as a reminder, if you go to the site, our next certification program, we offer the program for RMCP. It's a program that is either offered in a on-site course, which we're doing here in Cincinnati in January 24th. We've got a nice groups already applied for the program coming up. It's a 3-day program. If you get your registration and money in by the end of the month, it's $12.95. Otherwise, it goes to $13.95. We also offer the same course in 6 2-hour online sessions with a little bit of homework in between. There is some prerequisites, but lots of information about the program out there on the RMI site, so I encourage you to go take a look. And by the way, if you have, before I get to Q&A, if you have an idea for the next topic for our Power Up sessions, we run in one of these every quarter for 30 minutes. Send a note with your ideas to rmcp@resourcemanagementinstitute.com, and we'll consider both topics, as well as if you'd like to be a guest speaker, we'd be interested in learning about those as well. So with that, I'm going to go right into the Q&A session. For those of you who have you have a Q&A panel there. You can enter questions if you have them. I've got a number of questions that come into the panel already. I'm going to start to address them, and if more come in as we talk, I'll try to address those as we go. So let me I'll take the first question, which is a natural one. Is that if we come to the conclusion after doing the self-assessment, we need more work on resource management, what do we do next? Well, I just, lots of different ways we could go about that, but at a high level, I would share 3 things with all of you. One is adopt a single process. Get to a single view of what your process is going to be. There's an article that's going to come out in our newsletter that's about to come out very shortly, where the author Stephen Ayers talks a little bit about this issue, about people saying I'll do an RM process, but I'm going to have a different process for every organization. The data is really clear. It's doomed to failure. Adopt a single process. Educate people. Now, the beauty of our certification program is that you get a process and you get an opportunity to educate people on the same process. At least think about that as a way, but in the end, if you choose to do your own, make it a single process, educate people on it, and by the way, centralize your view. The data is overwhelming that centralizing your resource management function, and I don't mean put all the people in one place, I mean have a view as to how human capital in our company gets allocated to projects, is far more successful done centrally than done when that view is central, or have a view into all the human capital in that organization versus it's broken up into silos like by geo or by department or otherwise. That's an area organizations struggle with, to be clear, but it's an place when organizations get past that, they find incremental improvements in how they do in resource management. So we certainly get this program has come up about how long the certification program has been around and how broadly accepted is it. The certification, the RMCP program itself, while the RMI was only launched this July, the certification program that is offered through by the RMI and through some of our resellers has been around for 3 years, this coming February. So we've been certifying people. We are in the hundreds of people who've been through the program. We're going to be making announcements. We hit certain milestones along the way, but I will just tell you it is growing quite rapidly. We have over 40 companies that have adopted the program and are putting all the resource managers and future RM hires through the program. You can see a lot of those companies out on our website. And probably one of the most important things about the acceptance of the RMIs is that you'll see out on the website, if you go to the page that has our RMI Board of Advisors, you'll see quite a few really big industry-known companies that have put people on our RMI board to help us with input, engaging the future activities of the RMI, so that we have outside influence as to what the RMI is and how it is going to go in the future. We're clearly operating as we think best practices around a good institute might be. So I hope that helps people with that question about it. But the program's doing really well, thanks to all of you and a lot of folks that we see. I see a lot of our RMCP folks are on the broadcast today. Watching the panel, I don't see any other questions. If you have questions that you have after this, by the way, you can send to the same address, RMCP@resourcemanagementinstitute.com. and we'll try to pick up with any other questions that you might have post the webcast. With that, we're out of time here. I'll catch one last question. Ken, what resources are available to people who sign up and don't have the certification? I would encourage you to go to the website, but in short, some of the things that you will see. Let's see if I can back this up just a bit here, real quick. If you go to our website and go to this RM community page that's right here, you'll find our white papers there. You can continue to attend these Power Up events. We are having other events that we're doing throughout the year. You can get access to our network, you can get access to our forum, and by the way, if you participate in the survey, you can get access to our research data that's going to be coming out. So the short answer is, for free, we think you get a lot of stuff. Hopefully that, give it a try and decide for yourself. Again, all you got to do is just go to in the upper right-hand corner there. There's a join button. Join, put your email in and whatever information we ask for. It's pretty short, and you'll start getting, you'll have access to the RMI data. So anyway, good question. I hope you'll take advantage of that. We are out of time. I want to thank everyone for joining our broadcast today, and we'll be getting a note out shortly about once we've landed on a new topic and a date for our next Power Up session. So thanks for joining us. Have a great day.